Located a few kilometers south of the Egyptian capital, near the desert limits, the pyramids stand as evidence of the ancient Egyptian apex. These monuments were constructed during a period spanning 5 centuries, designated by Egyptologists as the Old Kingdom. Archaeologists excavate the sandy terrain and decode structural remnants to understand the society, which encompassed 30 pharaohs across 4 consecutive dynasties. This wide territorial expanse contains hundreds of open-air graves, forming the Memphite necropolis. The site stretches for dozens of kilometers and shows dense occupation throughout its entire area. Currently, thousands of tombs and approximately 120 to 130 recognized pyramids are catalogued. The funerary region comprises several complexes built over a span exceeding 3,000 years. Spanning from the Giza Plateau in the north down to the Fayum Oasis in the south, this 1,300 square kilometer desert zone holds the Great Pyramid, along with the structures of Khafre and Menkaure. Such constructions represent the most visible ruins, yet they offer minimal data regarding the monarch's existence and their belief in a post-mortem reality. Further south, 20 kilometers away from those architectural landmarks, lies a fundamental site for studying the initial royal lineages. At the Saqqara necropolis, an atypical structure draws researchers' attention as it indicates the beginning of engineering in the nation. The Egyptians erected the country's first pyramid there, located north of the area's largest funerary complex. This monument has stood for nearly 5,000 years as the oldest elevated building created by humanity. It is the tomb of Pharaoh Djoser, the founding king of the 3rd dynasty. The stepped format of the building served the practical purpose of manifesting the sovereign's divine and eternal dimension. Researchers propose the structure operated as a staircase to the sky, enabling the monarch to reach the divine sphere following his physical death. Prior to this project, rulers constructed rectangular funerary buildings, with some reaching 40 meters in length and 12 meters in height. The mastaba covers the royal burial chamber. The word originates from the Arabic term for bench, describing rectangular structures featuring slightly inclined faces. The primary characteristic of these buildings remains hidden inside, a large shaft. Measuring up to 20 meters deep, this shaft houses the chamber containing the deceased's sarcophagus. Djoser sought to differentiate himself from his predecessors and consolidate his authority. To achieve this, he hired the architect Imhotep. The proposed design permanently altered local architecture. The innovation consisted of superimposing successive rectangular bases over the initial mastaba, forming multiple levels. Thus emerged the concept of the stepped pyramid. The initial dimensions measured 109 meters in width by 121 meters in length. Stacking 6 quadrilaterals elevated the summit to 62 meters, an unprecedented mark for that era. The requirement for resources multiplied exponentially to realize this work. The application of stone, replacing the bricks from prior epochs, expanded the project's scale. Despite analyzing Djoser's construction, experts detected no hieroglyphic engravings in the burial chamber that could explain the customs of that vanished civilization. At the end of the 19th century, a new theory modified archaeological progress. In 1880, researcher Gaston Maspero formulated the hypothesis that unexplored complexes might contain stone records. Auguste Mariette rejected this possibility. Maspero insisted on his proposition and organized an official expedition. Upon assuming the directorship of the Egyptian Antiquities Service, the Frenchman sought to increase available data regarding the pyramids. He obtained government funding passed to Mariette on the condition of investigating southern Saqqara. The targets were the complexes subsequent to the year 2650 and the Giza works from the year 2560, which were still covered by sediments. The tombs of the Pepi I necropolis, built approximately 300 years later, brought essential data for historical understanding. In the winter of 1880, Heinrich Brugsch, a colleague of Mariette, visited the location. Brugsch reported squeezing through the collapsed corridors until he found the end of the main passage. There, he identified walls full of hieroglyphs among the rubble. This discovery established the first record of the funerary formulas. The academic community revised its research methods immediately following the event. Through these inscriptions, direct study of the thoughts and directives of those monarchs became viable. Almost 150 years after the initial find, 15 scientists maintain excavations in the southern sector of Saqqara. The site has revealed 11 pyramids with inscriptions so far, forming the largest set of ancient religious texts globally. These documents represent the largest continuously written volume of that period worldwide. Earlier writings exist within the country. In Mesopotamia, prior records also operate as accounting notes. Tablets indicated equivalencies of wheat sacks. The objective of the recitals carved in the pyramids was to ensure the monarch's survival after death. Older versions written on papyrus did not resist material degradation over time. Preservation for 4,300 years occurred only because the content was carved into the rock by the original stonemasons. The documentation offers a solid factual basis for analyzing the empire's pantheon. The pyramid of the powerful pharaoh Pepi I concentrates the largest compilation. This ruler from the 6th dynasty held power for about 50 years near the year 2300 and managed the construction of the largest complex of that century. The central sepulchre housed the first formulas identified in the research area. Since the early expeditions, the site operates as an ongoing analysis laboratory. High-technology equipment is used to inspect the royal family's structural protections and their inscriptions.
Egyptian engineers developed precise methods to assemble these high-complexity structures almost a millennium before the Iron Age. Available instruments were basic compared to today's. Ropes and wooden rods were sufficient to achieve strict alignments. The burial chamber required excavating a large pit and shoring up the walls. Raising the lateral barriers guaranteed stability. The builders utilized high-standard limestone slabs to form the surfaces. The texts were sculpted onto these mineral panels. Accessing the main room, located 8 meters underground, demands walking a 25-meter-long corridor. Philippe Colombert's team has authorization to enter the galleries. He has studied Egyptian traditions for almost 3 decades. The path used by the researchers occurs in the reverse direction to that planned for the ruler's exit from his deathbed. Architects calculated the orientation and inclination of each corridor mathematically. The entrance to all pyramids points north on the vector of the pole star. This celestial body has no decline below the horizon line. Circumpolar stars orbit this fixed point uninterruptedly. The local culture associated sidereal disappearance on the horizon with terminal death. The orientations instructed the individual to reach the celestial bodies named the Indestructibles. Obtaining life beyond the tomb dictated the engineering of the complex. Architectural geometry operated alongside internal literature to ensure this outcome. Hieroglyphs cover the area from the ramp to the final chamber, from floor to ceiling. The structure hosts the sarcophagus planned for the rest. The purpose of the surrounding carvings is to facilitate the king's post-mortem activities. The lines were spells intended to extract the person from the coffin. Nominal calls order Pepi's elevation, accompanied by feeding guidelines, passes to adjacent dimensions, and instructions to repel invading scorpions and ophidians, while the cannibal passage details the systematic ingestion of deities during meals. A total of 651 invocations covers the room. The characters converge their faces toward the central furniture to maximize the manual's effectiveness regarding fusion with the divine world. The conceptions derive from traditions repeated verbally for centuries and consolidated in the year 2300. The recorded fundamentals originate in a civilizational phase preceding the standardization of letters. Experts processed the characters meticulously. The doctrine stipulated that the graphics possessed the ability of self-movement. Figures representing lethal animals suffered graphic interruptions to neutralize physical attacks on the pharaoh. The elephant's representation displays coverage on the lower area and the frontal nasal appendage. Other species underwent the same deactivation protocol against adverse aggressions. The entire project operated to isolate the internal material fundamental to the continuity of mortuary faculties. Structural analyses identified a physical mesh to block passages. Digital images validated the insertion of barriers called portcullises. Manufactured from hard rock, such as granite, these elements served to dam the corridor. The device weighed more than 14 tons. 3 suspended blocks formed the central bottleneck. Fixings secured the rocks vertically during the assembly flow. The ties were pulled when the deceased took his position. The transverse descent of the barriers prevented drilling into the main door. Despite the granite counterweights, thieves did not stop their excavations and violated the limestone textual slabs through the unprotected lateral walls. Verification of the clandestine tunnels tracks the damage imposed on the artifacts.
Despite analyzing Djoser's construction, experts detected no hieroglyphic engravings in the burial chamber that could explain the customs of that vanished civilization. At the end of the 19th century, a new theory modified archaeological progress. In 1880, researcher Gaston Maspero formulated the hypothesis that unexplored complexes might contain stone records. Auguste Mariette rejected this possibility. Maspero insisted on his proposition and organized an official expedition. Upon assuming the directorship of the Egyptian Antiquities Service, the Frenchman sought to increase available data regarding the pyramids. He obtained government funding passed to Mariette on the condition of investigating southern Saqqara. The targets were the complexes subsequent to the year 2650 and the Giza works from the year 2560, which were still covered by sediments. The tombs of the Pepi I necropolis, built approximately 300 years later, brought essential data for historical understanding. In the winter of 1880, Heinrich Brugsch, a colleague of Mariette, visited the location. Brugsch reported squeezing through the collapsed corridors until he found the end of the main passage. There, he identified walls full of hieroglyphs among the rubble. This discovery established the first record of the funerary formulas. The academic community revised its research methods immediately following the event. Through these inscriptions, direct study of the thoughts and directives of those monarchs became viable. Almost 150 years after the initial find, 15 scientists maintain excavations in the southern sector of Saqqara. The site has revealed 11 pyramids with inscriptions so far, forming the largest set of ancient religious texts globally. These documents represent the largest continuously written volume of that period worldwide. Earlier writings exist within the country. In Mesopotamia, prior records also operate as accounting notes. Tablets indicated equivalencies of wheat sacks. The objective of the recitals carved in the pyramids was to ensure the monarch's survival after death. Older versions written on papyrus did not resist material degradation over time. Preservation for 4,300 years occurred only because the content was carved into the rock by the original stonemasons. The documentation offers a solid factual basis for analyzing the empire's pantheon. The pyramid of the powerful pharaoh Pepi I concentrates the largest compilation. This ruler from the 6th dynasty held power for about 50 years near the year 2300 and managed the construction of the largest complex of that century. The central sepulchre housed the first formulas identified in the research area. Since the early expeditions, the site operates as an ongoing analysis laboratory. High-technology equipment is used to inspect the royal family's structural protections and their inscriptions. Archaeologists were intrigued by the initial 200 stones brought in for classification. In-depth studies of the engraved excerpts pointed to Queen Behenu, an individual unknown to documented historiography until that moment. Advancing on the site demanded mobilizing 120 operators removing sand manually for continuous meters. A straight upper fragment emerged from the earth with pictorial clarity in its grooves. The coating featured greenish applications. The trenches revealed central walls untouched by the fall of the limestone ceiling. The bases of the walls guide the relative arrangements of the blocks located in the upper part of the fall. Routine formulas assist in coupling the fractionated letters through knowledge of the standardized sequence, and the alignment of the lower band guides the elevation of 90% of the panel. Integral excavation spent 6 uninterrupted months in the Queen's dwelling. The entire collected inventory migrated to the warehouse for checking. Professionals attempt to organize 60 square meters of undone surfaces, reconstituting the temporal degradation of the wall in a reduced space. Epigraphists produce exact visual molds without distorting the stroke characteristics of the secular lines. Familiarity with the liturgy progresses through repeated reproduction, taxonomic separation, and scanning of the plates. The physical incisions receive geometric vector conversion by the experts. The computational file has dimensions thousands of times smaller than an equivalent photographic matrix based on color points. This instrumental optimization supports the traffic of pages with 7 meters from margin to margin without processor crashing. A reference bank assimilates origin, length, and words detected in a record of the respective stone. Searching for the word swamp displays on the screen all parts containing swampy elements associated with that discursive universe. Human rationalization imposes itself against the restriction of generic programs for logical recomposition. The brain locates habitual terms in the tangle of mortuary grammar and projects the implantation sites of the physically detached block. Uncertainties of the specific literature diminish with comparisons to other adjacent mastabas, validating theoretical molds for undiscovered panels. Simulated projects validate fragments on the north face in simulations. The virtual ordering of the pieces encompassed almost 99% of the collected and mapped material. Returning the units to the Queen's base requires final physical validations by the person in charge. The restorative mason uses binding alloys only in perfectly certain connections. The flawed liabilities return to the sheds awaiting subsequent additional research. The continuous 12-year work inserts missing spells into the main wall, delivering consolidated results by the head of the mission. The researcher verifies on-site the simulations executed on the workstation. The fragment enumerated as 256 corresponds to the alignment posterior to a carved eye. The direction of the lines is assessed by observing the extremities, and 4 blocks adjust without secondary intervention. Some fractures do not accommodate adhesions and do not complement the gap of the limestone mass loss of the original mural. An exclusive team from the repair sector deals directly with the engraved texture to avoid incorrigible misalignments of the restored panel. Fragments smaller than a thumb become essential in the link of immense sections and complex paragraphs of the wall. Vertical panels protected in the north corridor display a compilation of the donation menu. The listings contain strict culinary guidelines for baked goods and liquids. The central iconography stipulates exact deliveries through the symbol of the projected hand containing a vessel and underlying multipliers of the referred quantities. Exact deciphering demands understanding the dual functionality of this phonetic and figural writing in its different applications. The graphical representation operates both in the direct designation of a residence and acts as a secondary phonological syllable depending on its location in the sentence line. The nominal pronunciation of the aristocratic leader Behenu comes from syllabaries based on the leg, a spherical container, and a baby bird positioned in the rock cartouches. More than 52,000 catalogued hieroglyphic carvings integrate that compartment inhospitable to the public of the Saqqara necropolis and justify the efforts of the primal architects of the era of the tomb's construction for fortification. The resurrection room consisted of the fundamental goal, making up merely 1% of the built structural cube that encapsulated it. The chamber succeeded the administration of 4 decades of Pepi I through the governmental transition to the son Merenre in the year 2255. Ankhesen Pepi II assumed the position of matrimony before the stepson with the regularity of the palace politics of that stratum. The early death opened space for the infant Pepi II to ascend to the throne, tutored by the firm directive leadership of the regent queen for long periods throughout the political and civil jurisdiction. Studies validated the undisputed and centralizing majority action of the ruler. The regency period fostered the works of the future complex of Pepi II, 2 geographic kilometers from the original paternal slabs. Gustave Jacquier identified the underground accesses in the year 1930, with seals still established on the central granite voussoirs. The surroundings of the excavations remained locked to curious onlookers from that date forward, configuring unprecedented visits by the current technical expedition, headed by the specialists in tomb literature of contiguous active excavations. Infiltrations reveal paintings in primary state and unaltered traces in the details embedded in the installation's ceiling. The copper compound responsible for the greenish darkening of the wall retained chemical integrity without humidity for 4,000 years. The compound symbolizes Osiris through the representation of biological return linked to the annual germinative green of rural crops along the natural dams of the plateau after the consecutive lows and floods. The handwritten records of the Swiss explorer direct the infrastructural stabilization stages by the current fronts in the deep-based funerary courtyard. The former academic used common cemented mortar alloys in regularizing the stone floor in the 30s. The addition absorbs harmful vapor and transports porous ailments to the original foundations of the limestone perimeter excavated in the floor of the vertical tombs with a straight base down in the central well. Manual teams collect the hard compacted slabs, replenishing the floor with dry organic fragments and draining gravel according to non-harmful protocols for the confined air at the exact depth of the flat and rectangular base of the pyramids. The engraved blocks contain literary references that never transited among the researchers of partner institutes of the discipline and require uninterrupted years of prior analytical tabulation to any release in the usual journals of classical Egyptology associations. An extensive and dense load will need digitizations and photogrammetric reproduction in totalized perspective and without distortion of the margins. Experts transfer the graphical replicas of the intact murals immediately to the research centers, aiming for constant daily work. Non-tangible scans reveal the blocks that are hidden in the compacted rocks in the Saqqara desert, surpassing the secular protection of sand. In the imperial macropolitics of the same century, the directive chains under Pepi I rapidly filled the number of privileged officials who demanded more luxurious tombs in the surrounding aristocratic mesh and weakened the general command. The central administration depended absolutely on the fluvial agrarian model of the producing zones, linked to the constant floods of the beds in all its profitable area of the borders. Agricultural collections subsidized taxes to finance civic labor for the heavy annual state funerary constructions and governmental bureaucracy in the central echelons of the palace functionalism of Pepi I and Memphis as well. Acute seasonal anomalies destroyed stocks and did not replenish the fiscal cash to guarantee salaries in all instances. The effective government under Pepi II witnessed the emptying of the state apparatus of the capital and the diminutive size of the ditches destined for the elites of the neighboring sectors of the decrepit royal foundations. Power collapsed into the hands of provincial leaders and no longer counted on the unconditional civil obedience due to the former full mandators of the first classical monumental era, without any centralizing fracture in the sovereign royal post. The monumental buildings halted their executive flow upon concluding almost 500 years of uninterrupted operations. The limestone and granite stones contain the basic religious formulation preserved for millennia until the arrival of contemporary resources. Meticulous digital and physical interventions provide the documentation of the original beliefs without compromising the historical scenario.